So today we are doing these two plums. It's a stunning photo reference from Anil Lilly. I saw the colors of this and I was like, oh yes, I have to paint these two plums. I love the simplicity and I love the light and I love the colors, the violets and the mauves and the deep purples, the reddy purples, and with that light, that mauvey light coming through, I was like, yes. So I'm working on Pastelmat here. It's the maize colored Pastelmat, 27.5 centimeters by 20 centimeters. I've decided to not sketch out for this one. It's not a commission, it was just a piece I was doing for myself. So I tend to always feel a bit more relaxed. So I decided to not sketch, and also it's quite simple shapes. You know, you've got the table line there and you've got two roundish shapes, I should say. So I just felt I wanted to go in here free rein, and I'm just whacking in a background. I started off, as I usually do, with very dark colors. That was my Terry Ludwig's from the Intense Darks 2 set. I started off with more of like a dark blue violet, and then just building up from there, going brighter. Those are some of the, what I've got right now in my hand is the Unison red 17, 15, 16, 17 or 18 somewhere. Those are all the sort of bright magenta purpley reddy purples. So as you can see, just picking up any colors I think will work. Colors in the blue violet to the mauve, and then whacking in some green over here. I'm not sure what that was, but just kind of trying to stay true to the photo reference, because I just, as I said, I just loved this background. And I'm working from dark to light as per usual. I just find that if you start with really dark, and then you gradually build that value up, it leads to a painting with more depth. And I personally love that in paintings. I love depth. Coming in with some A19, I think it is, Unison. I love how it looks like one hot mess. It's one of my favorite things about pastel. Looks like such a friggin' mess. Until closer towards the end, suddenly you've got a painting that kind of looks like the way you intended it to. I'm giving it a good rub in the paper, wanting all these colors to blend together. Don't want any harsh lines in the background. I want everything to be really, really smooth. So I'm really rubbing quite hard. It's A18 from the Unison. Back to A19. I'm just experimenting here, just having fun, picking up whatever pastels I think may work, then giving it a good rub into the paper, holding my board there. I work on a table easel, and because this board is actually quite a big board. It's probably about 40 centimeters by 60 centimeters. No, probably bigger actually, probably 50 by 60 centimeters. And so I can't really secure it because a table easel, doesn't really work for such big sizes. so I've got to hold it. But I enjoy having a table under me, um, because I often have my pencils on there, or you know, I might do a video of my studio so you can see how I work. But I really enjoy having a table. Whereas if I've got an easel, I'm kind of, my table's to the side. Now on the way I work now with the tabletop easel in my table, I've got a table on my left and I've got shelves on my right. So I'm surrounded by surface, because with pastels, you need a lot of surface. Um, because when I work, I mean, I've got tons of pastels. Forgot to put my phone on airplane mode there, so excuse the little notifications coming up. So anyway, so a table for me is just another space that I can have to hand, for the colors I'm using a lot, like, a black pencil. Um, so I find it really useful, where if I've got an easel, I don't know, I've just got my two side tables I'm working from, but I need to figure out a way to get more stable. I don't know actually if they even do table easels that are really can work with bigger boards, so that you can secure it in. So I was just using my printout to map out whereabouts the plums are going to go. Holding it up right on it so I can sort of gauge and say, okay, it looks like they're going to be about here. Also note, I'm not drawing a round circle. I am almost I'm almost going in more of an hexagonal sort of shape. I just find it gives more of an authentic fruit shape, really. I find if you went in round, it would just look not as authentic. So that's a little thing to bear in mind, that rather, instead of going for a round circle line, try think of a hexagonal sort of shape rather. So that was a Terry Ludwig. As I said, all the Terry Ludwigs are from my Intense 2 box, which sadly has gone massively up in price. I mean, I bought these it's going on to probably about 6 months ago, and they were £140. Then about 2 months after that, I thought maybe I should get the Intense Darks 1, which has a lot of red in, and to be honest, I don't use a lot of red in my work. And then they jumped up to £170, and I was like, oh geez, that's a bit of a jump. Well, today they're over £200, so they've jumped massively in price. Very sadly for us artists, everything seems to just be jumping up in price at the moment. Except Sennelier, they actually came down from Jackson's a little bit. I was like, oh, go Sennelier. I was very happy about that. I do love Sennelier. I think their colours are so saturated and intense and vivid. And they've got such a beautiful, massive range. I think it's over 500 colours in their range. So I do, but I find my workhorse pastels are the Unison. Obviously, I'm using the Intense Darks quite a lot in here because the colours of this painting just lent themselves to the colours in that box. It was like perfect. But my workhorses are my Unison. So in every single painting, I predominantly use those. And so I'm very familiar with those pastels, the names, and I've basically got the whole range. Just a few that I don't have, but I've got a lot of those. Where my Sennelier, I am still collecting, pastel collector, aren't we all? Can't get enough of colour. I'm not as familiar with the Sennelier. I tend to use them if I need that bright, vivid color. So I tend to use them as more of the top layer pastels. But I have been meaning to just work on a painting and only use Sennelier so I can get to know the pastels more, their colors. Same with my schminky. I've got quite a lot of schminky. I know the white, obviously, because that's the one I use the most, because it's so soft. It works brilliantly on the top layers. But again, I'm not really familiar with those. Again, if I'm looking for something that's intense and bright, I will go to schminky as well. So I use them very little in my work, but I'm wanting to use them more, definitely. I also, like over here, no, that is Unison A15. I can see it's quite fat. That's not a schminky, that's a Unison. I mean, Unison do have some pops of color, but I love the Unison because it seems like they are fantastic with all the in-between colors, you know, the mauvey grays, the light mauvey grays through to the dark mauvey grays, the greeny grays, the browny greens, the browny grays, you know, all those in-between colors. So this is Unison again. It's a bit of, it's red 18. But yeah, so that will be a project. Sennelier only. I mean, you must see my Sennelier. They're basically still wrapped. A lot of them still have their papers. They haven't been broken. You can see they're just not as used. So I need to, because they're also cheaper than the Unison. Unison have also gone up a lot. When I started pasteling 2.5 years ago, going up to 3 years now, I used to pay £3 a stick. They are now £4.40. I'm talking about Jackson's Art, but they have gone up a lot as well. So have the Sennelier. I think they started at £2.30 or something. Now they're £3.30 or somewhere around there. Anyway, hey, what are we gonna do? Just have to. What are we gonna do? Stop pasteling because things go up? No. Just need to make more Patreon videos and sell more art. Yeah. So it's important here to get in your darks, because that's gonna create the darks with the lights. Well, your darks to your midtones to your lights is going to create the shape and the depth. I really didn't want this piece to look too flat. And if you don't go dark enough, not light enough, if you don't go dark enough, your image can very quickly appear flat. So I really did not want that. So you'll see me. I'll keep coming in with those darks and darkening. You know, don't be afraid. Once you've done your first layer and then you work up, you get some more colors in there, don't be afraid to go back in again with your darks. You know, there's no rule that says once you've laid down a dark, you're not allowed to go in with another dark and darken it up in later stages. Of course, I always go back in with my darks. So as you can see, I'm putting in some oranges and rusts sort of colors, because I can see that in the skin of these plums. And then going in with, I think this is grey 8 Unison. Brilliant color, absolutely brilliant color, so versatile. Grey 7, 8 and 9. Just brilliant for, I don't even know what it's called. when plums have that, you know, grapes and plums get that, it's not even fur, I don't even know what you call it. So this is now BV9, just putting in a bit more of a blue color in there, just to zhuzh it up a bit. I thought maybe on the plum, this part I'm working on now, this part of the skin, you called it something, but I can't seem to find. I'm sure there is a fancy name for it. If you can let me know in the comments below what it's called. But yeah, the grey 8, 7, 8, and 9 work brilliantly for this. Really love that. And I'm trying to think about where the light is hitting the plums, because that again, if I can keep that in my mind, then I can help create the form. And I think the light is coming from the top slightly right. So that's where the majority of the lights will be. And that's going to help create this plum shape. So that was that going on with a beautiful, I think that one was a Sennelier actually. I think it's called Chinese Vermilion. I love the Chinese Vermilion. And then in the Sennelier range, they've obviously got dark to light. And they've got about 5 colors in the one color range. So I'm not sure exactly what number it is, but it's definitely Chinese Vermilion, it's called. And they vivid, bright, beautiful orangey reds. Just fixing up the background there where I've gone over. Isn't that just brilliant? Pastel is just so forgiving. You go over a little bit, that's fine. Just fix it up with some background color. Make sure you've got clean hands when working with the lights, because I've done that a few times. You'll see in this as well. I go in with a dirty finger. It's not recommended. So usually I have a wet cloth, a damp cloth next to me that I just wipe my hands. Or I'll actually even stop the video and go and wash my hands, because I've got really dry skin, and I find the pastel pigment actually dries my skin out further. So you'll find I actually do wash my hands quite often when working on a project. Yeah, I don't like working with gloves. Occasionally, if I'm working on a big piece and the background's like black or extremely dark, then I will wear gloves. But it's not, I don't know what it is. It's just, I just don't enjoy it. I love the feel of the pastel on my hands. And I was a bit worried about toxicity, when I first started. But I've seen, Unison have done a statement saying it's not toxic for your skin. Don't eat the pastels. So I was like, okay, fine. So I'm okay. You can also get a guard, which Winsor Newton do it. If you looked for hand guard, I think it's called. It's basically like an aqueous cream, I would say, and that protects your hands. And I've used it on the first layer. You know, I'll put the cream on, make sure there's no residue left really on my hands, and I'll work in on a painting and it's been fine. It hasn't transferred grease onto my work at all. Yeah, it's called Miracle Guard or something like that. Windsor and Newton. I think it's about £10 a pot. I just bought mine on Amazon. Sometimes I'll use that, and then also when you come to washing your hands, because it's got that layer on it, the pastel comes off so easily. You know, you don't have to sit there scrubbing with your nail brush. Um, so yeah. So anyway, there I'm showing you the intense darks. Um, Terry Ludwig. I really wish um, we could get these here more easily. I mean, Jackson's is perfect, but it's just so expensive. I wish they were cheaper. Just going in, I haven't drawn any leaf. I'm just using the pastel to draw a leaf, using shapes, looking at my reference photograph, having a look at the form. So going in with that and just hoping for the best, following it as best I can. Now I'm showing you my Unison that you can't see. Oh, green 18. There we go. Going in with some green 18. See, always working dark to light. So this color is an Art Spectrum. It's the Art Spectrum Extra Soft. I bought the portrait set. I love these pastels. Um, they are soft. I think they're a little bit softer than the Terry Ludwigs. But again, in this pastel set, it's not bright colors. It's all those in-between colors. And I just find them really enjoyable to use, and I think they're also at a good price point. I think at the moment you can pick up a box of 10 for £36 from Jackson's. Um, Yellow green earth 8. Love my yellow green earths in the Unison range. I find them just so useful. Um, But yes, the art spectrums. I think though what's annoying is Jackson's don't bring over the open stock of the art spectrum. I really wish they did, as well as they missing um, other box sets. Like you can get the grey box sets, and I think there's an amber box set, which I don't know why they don't just bring in the full range, because it's not like it's that many more. It's like a 3 extra boxes. Like if they're doing all the other sets, why don't they just bring in, I don't know, maybe we can all email them and say, please bring in some more Art Spectrum, and it would be awesome if they would actually sell the open stock. I love buying, well, I love buying both actually. I just love buying pastels. But I do like open stock, um, because, you know, if I run out of one color, that I use a lot. You know, there's always in a box set, you're always going to have those colors that you use in almost every single painting. Um, and so you're going to run out of those much quicker than the others. So I just think open stock is really useful. And as I said, I wish they brought the Art Spectrum open stock in. Maybe I should actually email them. I'll speak to Danielle. Is it Danielle? I think her name's Danielle. Daniela. I might just pop her an email. Oh, yeah, my yellow green earth sevens. Brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, glorious. So lovely. Because sometimes green can be very green and it doesn't look authentic. I don't know if you know what I mean, but these yellow greens, I just find them just so useful. I use them a lot in when I'm painting foliage and leaves and grasses, things like that. Like, come in really, really useful. So much fun. It's so funny at school when we did art, they'd always come out with like a bowl of fruit, banana, an apple, and an orange in a bowl. And then they'd give us charcoal, and now we've got to draw the still life. And I always hated art because it did not inspire me. I didn't want to draw fruit. I couldn't understand, why this was necessary or interesting, or who would be motivated to want to draw a bowl of fruit. So I didn't do art at school. I didn't do art at university either. So funny enough, I did history at university, and that remains one of my great passions besides art, obviously. So often when I'm painting, I'm actually listening to history podcasts in the background. On my Blue Pansies tutorial, I was very quiet and I was just painting along, listening to some history podcasts by Susanna Lipscomb. And I was thinking, should I make this a just paint along with me? But then I'm not sure if people get annoyed because they're hearing background noise, a background talk that maybe they're not interested in. But I wasn't talking much, I wasn't guiding what I was doing or anything. I was just quietly painting, listening to art. Oh, doorbell. Sorry, that was my husband. Just come home and he forgot his keys with all the groceries. So, sorry about that. I don't know what I was yapping on about, but never mind. Just showing you some P8, so Portrait 8 of the Unison set. Again, I really enjoy the portrait colors. I don't know how often I use them for portraiture. I find I use the Blue Earths a lot for portraiture. Their colors are amazing for portraits, and the size of their little I don't know if you've seen them. They're square pastels, much smaller than Art Spectrum and the Terry Ludwigs, and they're much softer as well. BE24 Unison, brilliant color, use it everywhere as well, like a muted dark purple. Anyway, so for portraiture, I use Blue Earth pastels a lot. I find them brilliant. The colors are just spot on. They glide on beautifully. Skin's got a softness to it, and because of the softness of the pastel, I just find it lends itself really well to portraiture. So I find I use the portrait colors of Unison a lot for sunsets. I'm always pulling out Unison pastels for sunsets, or if there is like a glow, if I'm painting an animal and there's a sunshine and there's a glow around the fur, I find the portrait colors, the oranges, work really, really well because they're not bright orange, in your face orange. It's A24, one of my favorite colors in the whole of the Unison pastel range. I find it so useful. It's like a dark purpley brown color. It's just brilliant for everything. I love it. Sorry, that's a by the by, but yeah, going back to when you're painting a glow, I mean, you'll see I'll do some tutorials. sometimes I don't want a bright orange, in your face orange. It needs to be subtle, but it can't be white. It needs to have more color than just a tint. So I find the portrait pastels in the Unison range really useful for that. So very seldom do I use the portrait colors for portraits, as in people portraits. Um, yeah, just a by the by. It's funny, we're in a box set. I'm always attracted to the portrait sets. I don't know why. Because often you can get like a muted blues and loads of creams. I just find the portrait pastel box sets are just colors I tend to use all the time in my work. Again, it's sorry, my husband's playing music down there. I did tell him I'm doing a tutorial voiceover. But yes, I find, like, I bought Mount Vision, also a pastel from the States. They're nice, chunky, big. I think they're a little bit harder than Unison. I use them quite a bit too in my work, but I bought a landscape set, and because I thought I would use that a lot, but not really. I don't know what it is. Don't know what it is. Um, there's a lot of greens in there and a few yellows. I just find the main colors I use are these in between colors. So it's almost like a spectrum of grey, without being black and white mixed together. Not that kind of grey, but the red greys, the green greys, the blue greys, the yellow greys, the orange greys, the pink greys. All of those sorts of colours are what I use a lot, and I find them most used in my pastel collection. Except when I paint floral flowers, that is so much fun to crack out those brights. And in this piece, obviously, I've cracked out a few brights, which has been really, really enjoyable. But even then, like right now, that's a Terry Ludwig making the shadow, which is really good for grounding the plums, so it doesn't look like they're just floating in the air. It will set them down into the painting, which hopefully you can see. Excuse me. So I was busy saying before, that's what I was saying before the doorbell rang, how uninspiring drawing fruit was as a child and through my teens. And now, you know, after I've been working full time as an artist for 2.5 years, so excited by drawing fruit. I find fruit so, I'd have it on my walls. So I find it pretty to look at. I find it enjoyable to paint. Isn't that just so funny? How we can change. Something that could be so uninspiring has just become glorious. But I think pastel just lends itself so well to fruit because of its looseness and its softness, and then the brightness, the saturation of color you can get. It's just such a wonderful medium. Perhaps it's just the pastels that excite me drawing with fruit. If I was going to draw fruit with pencil, maybe I wouldn't feel the same. Don't know. I do have some soft pencils, not soft pencils, just pencils that I use, art pencils, proper artist quality pencils. And I do enjoy using them, but I just find it takes so long. So I actually, when I first started drawing like more seriously, I actually drew with colored pencil. And that's how my pet portraits came about. My mom, I'd lost my job as a bookkeeper. This is during COVID, when COVID first hit in that March 2019, I think it was. Mom, I was doodling, in and out with colored pencil as well as watercolors. Because I've always enjoyed art. My uncle was an artist, he sold in gallery in the 80s, proper artist, and so was my great grandfather, Giller. He was an oil painter. Both of them were oil painters. My mom's very artistic. She also paints beautifully, but she doesn't have much time to do that. And anyway, so it's in the blood. But I'd never produced a piece I was happy with ever. Um, and then I started doodling when I lost my job, and Mom said, "Hey, here's a picture of Humphrey. That's her pet bulldog." She's like, "Why don't you draw him?" And she sent me the photograph she wanted copied, and I did it. And I was like, "Oh, wow, I can do this." Because in my head, I thought you're not allowed to use reference. I know this is ridiculous, I know. I thought you had to paint from your head. I didn't realize you're allowed to look at reference, whether it's a photograph or you're painting plein air or you've set up a still life. Yet in my brain, I also knew that the old masters were setting up still lifes all the time. It's so crazy. But I didn't know I could copy from like a photograph. I didn't know that was allowed. And that just opened up a whole world to me. Anyway, so I started with colored pencils, but it took ages. And I was like, if I'm going to do this, I need to be able to work quicker. And I stumbled across pastel pencils. And so I went on to those, and then I stumbled across the world of pastel. And I was like, yes, just loved it. And so I was hooked since then. I do also enjoy oil painting. I have quite a lot of oil paints because there's something about oil painting. I don't know. There is a magic about oil painting too for me. But I'm painting from a little corner of my bedroom. So pasteling's much easier. It's it's easier to pack away. I don't have to worry about fumes. Even though when I do oil paint, I use the Sennelier green range, which is healthier. It's no terps in there, but they still are odors. Even though you can't smell them. When oil paint is drying, there's a certain smell, whether you use terps or not, and I'm not a fan of that. So I really would like if I had a proper studio, and I wasn't painting in my bedroom, I definitely do some more lot more oil painting, I reckon. But I do love my pastels. That's, yeah. I love the fact you don't have to clean brushes afterwards. You literally put your pastel stick down and come back to it tomorrow. That's what I do. Because I work on the Clairefontaine Pastelmat, I don't have a lot of dust. When I work on sandier papers like UArt or Tim Fisher, they kick up a lot more dust. So then I will always vacuum, and I'll put on my air purifier as well. But the Pastelmat I love because, it's got very little fallout. That's one of the Blue Earth pastels that I'm got on there. Just doing the finishing touches. Some orange that you can see. If you look at a plum, you can actually see oranges in there. This is coming to an end now. I hope you've enjoyed it, even though I've spoken a lot about everything besides the plums. But it's just nice to be free and just to whack some color on a paper, and that's exactly the idea with this one. So hope you enjoy, and I'd love to see some of your plum paintings. Till next time.